Masculinity is in crisis. What are we to do? We need to acquire a dominant masculine presence. Now available on Amazon. Masculinity is in crisis. Men's masculine behaviors and traits have been suppressed by popular culture. Why has it become so popular to shame, guilt, insult, masculinity, and masculine behaviors? After 50 to 70 years of this has resulted in a very large subset of men who have become weak, useless, and crisis. Pathetic state for boys and men that leads to depression and violent despair. A dominant masculine presence addresses this very dilemma for the individual man, and it firmly establishes why this is what is desperately needed by the individual man today. In this book, clearly defined masculine traits and behaviors and the emotional durability provided by traditional masculinity are presented as a guide to what every man should embed into his identity. Putting these principles and behaviors into practice will motivate and direct your path step to step to create for yourself an authentic, dominant masculine presence.
Life is a journey filled with twists and turns. Why is it that essential life lessons aren't taught in school? You probably know that the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, but do you know how to invest in a Roth IRA? We're not taught to build ourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. The roadmap to success is more than just a college degree. You don't have to follow the traditional route. Success isn't confined to a classroom. It's about discovering your own path. You ever wish that someone handed you a guidebook to life when you were 18? Well, it's never too late to rewrite your story. Everything I wish I knew when I was 18. Advice for young men to create a great life for themselves. This book is your compass, guiding you to pick the right career, how to invest wisely, and how to prepare for a fulfilling future. To take control of your health and your fitness. Learn how to date efficiently and find genuine desire. And master the art of leading healthy relationships. Your path is defined by the choices you make, not by others' expectations. Don't wait until you're 35 to unlock your potential. Order your copy now on Amazon. Rewrite your story. Build the life you deserve. All right, guys, welcome to the DragonShip, everybody. I am Paul Bauer at the helm today. Joining me, our Viking brothers, Thor, AJ, and Mike Steele. What's going on, guys?
Skull, man, you can unmute your mics. How you doing, Paul?
Man, living the dream, as you would say, Thor. Living the dream.
You are, man. What a Christmas gift. You got your book out. Things are rolling. The audio is flying off the shelves. You got signed copies, man. More than you can fill right now.
Yes, all the signed copies are on back order right now, which is a good problem to have. It sucks if you wanted a book for Christmas time, an autograph book for Christmas time. If you need that, you just skip the signature.
You can just come over to me. I'll get you the this one. I got a stock of them that I can sign and send out to you.
There you go. There you go. So, guys, I just want to start this off. We're talking about losers that are living with their parents still. I'm such a jerk. Let's go around the horn real quick. Let me ask Thor. Thor, what age did you move out of your parents' house and start living either on your own or with roommates or whatever? And how did you do it? How did you make it work?
Sure. I moved out twice. So I moved out about 6 months before I was 19. And I caretook my grandmother's house. And then I came back for just about 10 more months, maybe, let's just say a year, stayed with my parents, because when I caretook my grandmother's house, the only job I had was working in my father's business, and he closed it at that time. So I was looking for a job and going to college at that time. So I ultimately moved out of my house at just over 20 years old.
Okay.
And was on my own once I secured a job. I was going to do the college thing, but that didn't work out. I was too used to the money because I had graduated high school at 16, started working for my dad's business, made good money, got addicted to the money and everything that goes with it. And then when that was gone, college just didn't have the luster.
Got it. Okay. But you figured out how to make it work. Did you get like your own place, or did you get a roommate, or was just rent really affordable back then, way back in the stone hut days?
I had a roommate, but it was a girl that ended up marrying. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. All right. AJ, what's your story, man? Yours is probably, I'm assuming yours is very similar to my story.
Very, very similar to yours. I moved out probably about 3-4 weeks before I turned 18 because I joined the U.S. Navy. But with that, I've been helping my parents because I've been working jobs either under the counter or odd jobs here or there. I worked farming most of the time before I joined the Navy. So I was actually helping my parents pay bills since I was 15.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Navy
But
got
you
me
moved out and lived in and moved in with Uncle Sam is what you're saying.
I moved in with Uncle Sam, and then 2013 I bought my first house. I was living in base housing because I got married about a year after I joined the Navy. So I got into base housing then. Yeah. And then that would have been 2008. I got married. 2013 I bought my first house in Washington, and then 2019 sold it, moved to Texas, rented a house for a year, and then I bought the house that I'm in now.
Okay. Very cool.
Yeah,
All right, Mike.
I just rented. I rented somebody's converted garage for about 10 months before I got a real apartment.
Yeah. Mike, what's your story?
I moved out of my parents' house when I was 25, which is a little later than I should have done it. But I came home from work one day and it was like a switch in my head had flipped. And I looked my dad in the face. I'm like, Dad, it's time for me to go. And he just looked back at me and he said, okay. And I left Germany. I called up my buddies back in Indiana, my buddies Eminem, and I said, hey, guys, I'm coming back to America. Let's all get an apartment together. And they said, okay. And that's how I moved out.
What drove you to that decision, Mike?
It was just I hate to get all woo-woo, but it was like a feeling. It was like something was off. Like I wasn't a man because I was living with my parents. And so I went from 0 to 100. I went from, yeah, this is great, I don't have to pay rent, to I need out now. It was just overnight. I can't explain it.
So living at home that old, how was the poon situation though?
I mean, it was average, I would say, because I would just go to the girl's house. But you're correct in what you're leading with your question is that I couldn't bring them back. So,
well, I just wonder if that might have been a motivating factor.
We have a
25.
We have a scientific chart that Mike came up with that we're going to share later that goes into all of that, the cock blockage. But yeah, so my story is very similar to AJ's. I was coming up. I was in my senior year of high school, and I was just trying to figure out how the hell am I going to move out of my parents' house, because I had this paradigm that if I lived with my parents after high school, I was a loser. And which we'll talk about when we talk about mindset. But I was just sitting there. I remember I was in weight training class and I was on the chest fly machine just going, man, graduation is just a couple months away. Like, what am I going to do? I can't afford my own place. I work in a grocery store right now. I can't live off that. I can't afford college. What am I going to do? And I just started getting an epiphany, kind of like what Mike was saying, where it was like, well, you have a bunch of cousins that are in the military. And they're all doing well for themselves and they've made it a career. The government gives you a housing, they give you food, basically you can move out immediately with nothing and have a place to stay, food to eat. And they actually pay you some money and you don't have to live with your parents. I was like, that's it. That's what I'm going to do. So
yeah, I felt like that when I went to junior college after having worked for so long, and then Care took the house and then went back to junior college. Mm-hmm. I kind of felt that way too. I was like, man, I'm going to school. It's like, this just, after a while, then you get a girlfriend. It's like, man, this just isn't cutting it. Hence the reason to get a job, get the hell out. Yeah, absolutely. So what got me on this tirade, and the reason why we're doing this episode is because a couple of weeks ago, I was just going off on social media about guys being losers living at home.
It was glorious.
And the reason why was because I was reading this book. I just finished it. It's Clary's new book, A World Without Men. It's a fascinating book. It's not that long, right? It's one of his shorter books, but there was a statistic in there that he threw out that 27% of men ages 25 to 34 still live with their parents. And I was blown away by that. That's a quarter of men that's over a quarter of men ages 25 to 34 that are still living with mom or dad or mom and dad. And I'm like, that's just pathetic in my mind. I was just raised to this paradigm that, you become a man, you move the hell out. However you have to do it, you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I put that out on social media, just these memes and stuff, just making fun of guys like that, because I like to poke the bear. That's what I like to do. And man, there's so many people that just started going off about like defending themselves being losers. And
Dude, you triggered them. You
I did.
triggered
Oh,
them.
I triggered a lot of guys
You're
with
over
it.
the target.
In fact, let's share some of these here, because Mike and I did a whole stream about this last week on the 8th, but you know, it was such a good stream that it was like, let's open this up to the wider audience here. So let's see here. It's this one here.
Fire clips, by the way, from that stream, Paul. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We have one that went that has like over 10,000 views on YouTube Shorts.
Cool.
It's the one where I'm talking about, you know, when my kids, if my kids are still living here and they're not going to college, how I'm going to make them pay rent. And oh my God, people are like, that's so mean. You must want your kids to hate you. And I'm like, that's not what's going to happen. They're going to learn to figure things out, you know? So this guy here, he wrote as a comment to another guy in the comments, and he's like, I'm 45. Docs think I have multiple sclerosis. I'm a single dad with 9-year-old. Closest family is 280 miles away. I am so screwed. Nobody to help me with childcare. Got fired from a job because I had to take off while my son was sick for a few days. 45 years old, and I am screwed healthcare wise or health wise, and soon financially. Childcare is effing astronomical. No idea what I'm going to do to survive and not end up homeless.
Well, what's this context? Because MS is pretty fucking serious.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. But what really got me about this comment is it's so negative. It's such this guy's already defeated in his own mind.
Yeah. My other question with this,
I can imagine why though, because having disabled person in my family, I can completely understand that.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get what he's saying, but what has he done for the last 27 years before this point is my question.
Yeah. And exactly. It's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about basically guys who are mooching off their parents. I'm not talking about someone with a disability and, whatever, but it's like another thing too, is a lot of guys are always are in the comments thinking about why they can't do something instead of trying to figure out how they can do something,
Let's clear this up right now. People when we're talking about this, we're talking about a normal man who is of age, fighting age, and is fully functional, being able to go out into the world and conquer life.
Yeah, because like that was 99% of the comments that Paul was getting was from able-bodied men.
Yeah, we'll show some of those too.
Disabilities, all those sort of families, super important. And even when you go out and conquer the world, guess what? Those families are still important. You're still going to spend time with them. It's just you're not going to mooch on them anymore. In fact, as those parents get older, you're going to have to take care of them, and so they're going to move in with you. And it's not you living with them; it's them living with you. Yeah. So that's a whole different animal that we're not talking about. We're talking about accepting responsibility, man, and getting out there and becoming the patriarch of your family.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we got another one here. This one says, this meme was made by a guy who was successful enough to find a one-income job, but he forgets not everyone gets a paycheck every week or two. Well, why can't you? Like, why can't you get a job that pays better, that pays every week or two? I mean, what's your problem?
Guy needs to stay at the gym a little bit more and maybe get more on the resume creating and job hunting.
I doubt that's really him.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, most people doubt mine's really me.
Yeah, it's like what you could do, Nicholas Honeycutt. Thor in the description has a course, and it's a phenomenal course on how to become a power lineman.
Sure,
you could do that. You can do that, Nicholas Honeycutt. This guy says, I feel this was made by someone that's jumping from one relationship to the next to have a place to stay. A woman cheats on a guy she has kids with. He gets kicked out of a house he's bought or paying for and has no choice or funds because she lied in court to keep getting houses paid for and child support. What's the guy's choice, jail or suffer? And I'm
no. That's a temporary situation.
But still, I was like, dude, I own my own house. Like I don't need nurse chick to have a place to stay. You know,
No.
like what? That what's a relationship have to do with it? It has, I do know guys that do tend to do that, right? They sort of shack up with girls and they go and move in with them, and which honestly, if you're moving in with a girl, like that's a recipe for failure. That's a frame thing.
Let's turn this one
know?
around because this one's interesting.
Yeah.
Guys that become the plow horse, they turn over, they get married or they have their girlfriend, they turn over. They essentially go from living with a parent, Paul,
Mhm.
to living with a mommy because they turn everything over into a plow horse. He is the plow horse. He's turning all his finances. So he really doesn't know what he has. And so when he gets sent to the glue factory, he is at a complete loss. This is what we talk about when they get zeroed out. And this is kind of a personality type. I'm doing everything right. Whatever you say, dear, happy wife, happy life, I'll do more. I'll do more. Not realizing that he is marching his way to the glue factory. And that's the truth of it. That's the truth of the red suppository right there. So if they're trying to insinuate that's what's happening, he might need some family support for a moment to get through that. But no, just shacking up with mommy is not going to help it because mommy's basement, even though it's really cool, it's still mommy's basement. And that's going to be the big, eggplant block.
Yeah. Yeah.
And actually, Paul, if you could go back one.
Yeah. This one
right there. I want to point this out again here now that we got the other guys here. Notice his mindset with his wording. Successful enough to find a one income job, like it was under a rock somewhere. Like Paul didn't go out and get that good job.
Like I didn't go out and get trained up and
Yeah.
Yeah. They just fall in your lap, This guy says, I always thought that the pressure to leave the parents' house was to increase the demand for housing. In this dire economic situation, I could stay until 30 and it's okay.
Jesus fucking Christ. There's money out there, people. Fucking figure out how to make it, It's not it's not the end of the world.
Well, that's one thing I pointed out, I think on our stream, Mike, was that people are always saying, oh, it's a dire economic situation. Oh, it's the economy. And it wasn't like it was 30 years ago and stuff. It's like, dude, during the Great Depression, where you see pictures of people at soup kitchens and stuff, and they couldn't work and everyone's homeless, people got rich. There was people that got rich during the Great Depression. Okay. It wasn't everybody out on the streets at that time, and the stock market didn't go to zero. So some people figured it out. Some people looked for an opportunity. They thought about how they could do something and how to become successful in that type of situation. Those are, guys with that kind of attitude, that it's a mindset, and all these guys have defeatist mindsets, and everything's happening to them. Life is happening to them.
They haven't seen real hardship. Your great grandparents survived things like the Dust Bowl, the Great Depression, getting blown up on Omaha Beach, and they still managed to reproduce.
Yeah. It kind of reminds me of your course, Paul. It's like the whole part where it's like a lot of people do let life happen to them instead of making life for themselves.
Yeah. This one says, people are in school, people switch jobs, people have a hard time in this economy. It's not like 30 years ago where rent and cost of living is doable plus inflation. I don't live with my parents, but I can't really dislike the idea in this world. And that's another thing that I brought up too. It's like, what were people saying 30 years ago? They were saying the same thing. It wasn't like it was 30 years ago. Like, the losers say the same thing every 30 years.
Hey, Thor, what was the interest rate in the 1980s on buying a house? Was it like 12 to 18%?
Yeah, I had an 11% loan on my first mortgage.
Yep.
Yeah, people need to shut up.
my first apartment was, it was $525 a month, and people were like, well, see, that's really affordable. It's like, yeah, but minimum wage was $7 an hour at the time. Like minimum wage now, like you go to that same neighborhood, you can get that same apartment for, I think, like $1,800 a month or something like that. But minimum wage is like $15 an hour there, so it's like, it's all relative. It really is all relative, and I ended up at one point working 2 jobs in order to keep my bills paid. Like, I figured out how to do it. You know what I mean? This one's a bad take. People with good jobs still struggle today, but I'm not telling you anything you don't know. And I'm like, well, people would rather cry about it than figure out a solution.
Yeah, he's Canadian.
Yeah, he's a
The
Canuck.
Canuck Chuck.
That's the problem. So
Take the H out of that third word there, then maybe. Oh, this is my favorite one.
yeah,
Here
I
we
like
go.
this one.
Buckle up, guys.
Unless you're rich from family, famous from some activity like sports, acting, music, having a business degree, doctor, or any other high-end job, then yeah, you might get your own home or apartment. Only 1% has that. If you're mid to lower middle class, then parents are the best option. In middle class jobs, you are not making enough to move out. What?
Dude, I came from a family of 5 where my parents combined, if they were lucky, made $50K a year. They need to shut up. This is making me mad. This is making me mad, man.
Yeah, it's like, what do you mean the 1% can afford an apartment? Like, no. What did you say, Mike? A vast majority of people live in apartments in the United States.
Yeah.
So I mean, some of these guys were from other countries. I guess, it is pretty common and socially acceptable in a lot of other countries where you live with mom and dad forever or whatever. But it's like, we're not in those countries. Like, we're all in the United States here. This is a United States thing. And I think Clary's numbers are based on the United States, which makes it,
Exactly. Sack up, head west, young man, and go kill some shit and put down some roots.
That's interesting, though. Out here in California, they started something. Somebody's capitalizing on this. So the KB Homes, all of those big home manufacturers, since I'm kind of loosely related to the industry through the utilities, what they've done is they started building something called multifamily homes. And essentially they're for 3 generations. So there is some privacy there. There's different garages attached to this, and they charge a premium for this. So the entire family comes together and buys these things. And I'm seeing it a lot with like Chinese immigrants and other immigrants, but I'm starting to see Americans doing the same thing, getting into these homeowners associations that have multiple family homes. So it's like each family has their own little space inside of one giant home. And then you guys seen that around the country. I imagine in Texas, they're going to start doing that because a lot of Californians ran out there, and KB builds nationwide.
I haven't seen it here in Texas. Most of it is the average home that's being built, and like we got some homes right down the road from me being built. They're all like 1,800 to 2,200 square foot single family homes.
Yeah,
so, but they're being smushed onto each other. It's like almost like a row home, but with like a 3-foot space in between them.
Okay, yeah, this is something that might just be here on the West Coast, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's they might have them out here. I don't know that I've necessarily been paying attention enough to realize it.
Hey, can you pull up that comment from Moa?
This one?
Yeah. So like that one, I've seen a lot of that even with my own Asian friends because I lived in the Pacific Northwest for a while, and then even moving down to Texas. That's a cultural thing where a lot of the men do not move out of their parents' house until they're married.
Yeah, and even sometimes these multifamily homes are geared towards immigrants. I noticed that too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, fine. If that's what your culture is, whatever. But I think largely Clary's numbers are talking about American guys that are mooching off their parents.
Because those are certainly outliers that aren't even a standard deviation yet. So
yeah.
Well, and my address here to Moa is that what we're talking about in Western American culture is the female perception of a fully capable man who is still living in mommy's basement. That's the biggest impact that we're talking about right now. Of course, self-sufficiency is also the primary factor in being able to do your own stuff and be your own boss and go where you want, eat what you want, etc. And, bang chicks in your bedroom as loudly as you want so mommy doesn't have to hear it. But that's the biggest factor we're talking about, is the perception of the man from women if that man lives with his parents or in mommy's basement.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, and Clary posted up a reel on X today of a contractor talking about, hey, your mom's home is not your brothel.
Yeah, exactly. No, this is common. This is actually common, and there's a lot of concerns with doing this, but a lot of guys seem to want to do this. Maybe being of the gamer generation, where you can just hang and game and not really have, it really hinders your social life. I can tell you this, my social life, even though I had a girlfriend and when I moved out, my social life exploded. And not because I was single, but just social life, interacting with other adults and that sort of thing. At home, when I was living at home, it was just very routine. It was work, it was home, occasionally something from school, maybe somebody I knew, a friend or so. But when I got out, other than work and the basic survival skills, what happened with that is now it left this hole where I have to entertain myself. I had to go be social and do it amongst groups. So there's a disadvantage when you live at home as a young man, and you need to develop. Well, I mean, you guys have all seen the brain chart studies that where a male brain really matures somewhere after 25. And if you're, I'm of the personal belief that you can cause that maturity to happen earlier if you focus on it. Heck, that's the premise of your book, Paul.
Yeah, like if you are if you're forced to do it, you're going to figure out how to do it.
Yep.
And that's really what it comes down to. Yeah, what's up, Mike?
You pull up Mike Kamen's comment here.
Which one? There's two of them.
The latest one.
The guys aren't getting.
Mike, no, that's not true.
Yes, they are.
They absolutely are. It's just that guys in shitty apartments are getting laid way more than guys living in mommy's basement. And like, for example, one of my roommates back in Indianapolis, dude had a bare mattress in his room with no sheets on it and was bringing chicks home every weekend. Weekend.
Yeah, and that's a more of an intrinsic problem with kind of the millennials and the Gen Zs. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that the study came out that shit under 30% sexless. So put that out there and add mommy's a special cock block in there too, and now you've got even a bigger problem. At least you got a better chance when you're out on your own.
A lot of guys that make comments like that too are the kind of guys that think that women only care about money. That you have to have money to get chicks. It's like, you guys have to understand that money is the beta side of hypergamy. Yep. That makes her feel comfort, right? But it's not what makes her pussy wet. Her pussy wet is the alpha side of hypergamy, and you can optimize your alpha side and live on a fucking in a studio apartment with an air mattress, So let's see. Well, not in Philly. I do business with these people. Blue hair, fat, the worst people. Maybe you guys come different. No. See, we're not talking about guys who are fat with blue hair, because those guys don't care about themselves. That's different.
Yeah, he's right about that. We're talking about guys that intentionally want to live with their moms. You want to go and get an apartment and you're a fat cube surfer, you're gonna have trouble.
Yeah, Rudiger nails it right on top of the head. Mike needs to level up his game.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about this chart. So Mike came up with this very scientific chart here, and it's the SMV in relation to where you live, and it goes on a scale of 0 to 100%, right? 100% SMV, and he's got at 0 homeless. You have 0 SMV if you're homeless, and then at a 1, live with mom. Slightly better than that is lives with dad. That's actually at 10% compared to the 1% with mom. Why is that, Mike? Why is mom 1%?
Because for the most part, dad won't cock block you.
Yeah. Yeah. Mom's gonna cock block you with that. So that's why your S&B is even less. I mean, Jesus, like, it gives women the ick when a guy can't cut the cord.
Yep.
Yep. Oh, he's a mama's boy. Being a mama's boy is not sexy, but if you're just living with dad, like, dad's kind of like a bro. He's like an older bro, when you're past the age of 18, it's not so bad. He's not going to cock block you.
And to quote Robert Glover, you need to divorce your mother.
Yes, you need to divorce your mother for sure. Then the next one up, this is at 20%. This is lives with parents. And then I put 30% if you're in the military and you live in the barracks or on the ship. And the reason why that's better than living with your parents, but it's still not that great, is because logistics wise, you can't really bring chicks back to the barracks or to the ship to bang them. So you have to have like hotel room, or you got to go to their house. But still, perception wise, women like guys in military. There's lots of wannabe depend upon us out there, and And girls like guys in uniform. So your S&B is still going to be higher if you join the military and live in the barracks, as long as you're not living with your parents, right?
Hey, even President Carter banged his wife on the ship. There's stories about that.
Oh, I have story. I was married when I was in the Navy, and things happened on the ship every once in a while. But the next one here is rents house or apartment with roommates. Now that one's at 50%. That's 50%. So this is if you're a young guy and you're just starting out, no one's saying you got to go buy a 4-bedroom house when you're 18. Right. None of us are saying that. But you can easily afford to rent a room somewhere in most places, right? And that's even better because even if you are in a house, or you're renting a room in a house with 4 or 6 other dudes, you still have your own bedroom. You can put a sock on the door and say, "Hey, don't bother me, guys. I got and bring a chick back there."
Yeah, if you got a core group of bros, they're gonna respect that.
I got a story about that one. Last year, I was renting a couple of my rooms to a couple that I know I'm good friends with. Had a chick over. We were going at it in my master bedroom, which is right. There's a hallway in between that and my studio living room that I'm in right now. They were using that as their main living room. My buddy's playing freaking Destiny with his online friends, and he's just like, "Yo, bros, I can hear AJ just railing the shit out of this chick right now." So I've done it with roommates.
Yeah, it works. Then the next one up here, we have rents apartment alone. So that one shoots you up to 60% SMB. And that's kind of nice. You have your own place. It doesn't even have to be like a high-end place. My first apartment was in like gangland drug area, Imperial Beach, part of San Diego, down close to the border, but it was affordable. And there was a house or an apartment that was in the same complex, kitty corner from me down here. They were selling drugs out there. There was people pulling up and, just random people going in and out of that apartment 24 hours a day, and they once got raided by the cops. It was great, but it was affordable.
It's a rite of passage for young men. You got to live in one shitty neighborhood.
Yeah.
For a little bit.
You come correct. You keep your mouth shut. No one's going to give you any problems in the gang neighborhood.
Jackson Park housing for the Navy, which is in Bremerton, between Bremerton and Silverdale. It's not on the base, but it's like a section of land that the military owns. That was like total ghetto land.
Yeah. The next one here is rents house or a high-rise condo alone. So if you rent a house, it's better than renting an apartment. Or if you have a high-rise condo, like that's a little bit more upscale and stuff like that. So your S&B is probably going to be a little bit up there. Is that what you pointed at yourself, AJ?
No, I was doing too soon. I own the house. I own this house. I rented last house I lived in. I rented, but that was just for a temporary thing because I sold one house, moved to Texas, and then had to wait for everything to open up for me to buy. Yeah.
Okay. And then the next one is owns house or a high-rise condo alone. So you can also own a condo. And that's 80%. That's where I'm at. I own my own house. I didn't own my first house until my son was born, so I was already in my early 30s by the time I was able to buy my first house. And that I had to wait until the housing market crashed. The housing market crashed in 2008. And so it was finally affordable because a lot of these people have the same idea that was happening back then, which was the smallest 2-bedroom shack in San Diego was going for $500,000, right? And I was under the impression that I would never be able to afford a house. Just like at this market, I'll never be able to afford a house, but I could still rent an apartment. It wasn't unaffordable to rent. And then I just stuck it out in the rents until the housing market completely tanked. And then it was like, oh, hey, look, they're now affordable. Let me go buy one. Yep. And after you buy your first one, you can keep buying them, It's really that's simple.
That's how I got my first house. It's 2013 is when I bought it, but it was like right at the end of that coming down valley and starting to pick back up.
Yeah. And right now, the housing is pretty expensive. Like if you look in my area here, my house has doubled in value since I bought it a couple of years ago. It's already doubled in value. But I'm like, you see this, if you guys watch any kind of market, you guys watch the stock market, you watch crypto, you watch the housing market, They all have ebbs and flows. They all have corrections. I'm thinking we're heading for another correction in the housing market here pretty soon, because we're getting up there. When you start hearing people saying, "Hey, time, you better buy. It's only getting more expensive. You better buy." Just wait. Just wait.
Yeah, because I do think there will be a spot if that happens. There starts to crash out. We're going to see interest rates drop, and that'll reinvigorate the market.
Mm-hmm.
Prices won't necessarily go down that far, but you'll have the interest if you have to borrow.
Yeah. Well, you see, because of the inflation problem right now, we had a similar thing happen in the late 70s under Carter. Inflation was going up like crazy. Yep. So in order to fix that, they raised interest rates. And that was the early years of the Reagan administration. A lot of people don't realize that, but interest rates were outrageous back then. But doing that caused everything pricing to start to drop and stuff like that. And then you had this major boom in the 90s, right? If you watch history, like, this stuff repeats itself. So having this defeatist mindset of like, I'll never be able to, it's really not helping you out.
Yeah, I just looked it up. 1981, 30-year was a 16.64% interest rate on a house.
When?
81.
Yeah.
So I bought in 87 and the interest rate was 11, and I bought a house at $79,000 on an hourly wage of $11.49. I was coming up as a apprentice to be a journeyman lineman in the next year, and then I would have jumped up to $14.22. Mm-hmm. You can do the math on what that was. That was $11.90 a month once you do P&I and or once you do, principal, interest, and mortgage protection. That was a struggle for a couple of years until interest went down and I could refinance it, which I did.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's tools like that available. Refinancing, that's a tool. And especially if interest rates are starting to drop and you have a high interest rate loan, as long as you've been paying on that for like a year, you're pretty much qualified for a refinance at a lower interest rate, and they'll lower your payments, and you could do stuff like that, guys. There's a way. You got to think about how you can.
Buy a house. I've changed my mind on having to buy a house. I think that when you buy a house, if you're smart today, and Paul, I think you'll kind of agree with this, mm-hmm. You're going to move to where the higher paying jobs are, and that's mm-hmm. going to keep you mobile. You're probably going to need to stay in apartments, but find a place you like and score a house or a duplex and rent mm-hmm. the shit out.
Yeah.
And sit there and let it be building for your future. So people don't see in long enough term slices. And you mentioned that in your book, Paul. Mm-hmm. And so you can stay in that apartment and you can make an apartment nice AF. Mm-hmm. And if it's in an urban area or somewhere nice and you're making some coin, you're going to be just fine. You don't have to buy a house to attract a woman. Although there are cultures such as the Asian culture. I'll just use China as an example. Their family helps the boy buy a house and a car so that he can get married, because a lot of families aren't letting their girls marry unless they're that well established. And that creates that age difference too that you see in the Asian cultures between mm-hmm. the mates. So just food for thought.
Yeah. Yeah, that works out. Yeah. Investing for cash flow. That's the smartest way to invest. And so if you do buy property and rent it out, that is investing for cash flow.
If I had it to do over, I think I would have done it that way rather than buy that high interest, or just waited a little bit and then bought something and rented it out, because it would have been self-sustaining and it really would have paid back in just a few short years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then this final one here is owns house high rise with other properties. That's your 100% S&B, because you not only have your own property that you're living in, but you're also making money on rentals. And now you're rolling in the dough.
And here's the whole point of this chart, guys. No one is saying that you need to go from 20 to 80 overnight.
Right.
Look at all the shit that's better than living with your parents.
Yeah. You got a long runway here. And like I said, I didn't buy my first house until I was in my 30s, and that's okay. Like, no one's saying move out of your parents' house. It's highly unrealistic to think that you're going to move out of your parents' house and have the same lifestyle as your parents. It took your parents to build up that lifestyle. You will too, and that's okay. That's a part of life.
Yep.
Yeah. And I will say this about some. There's a portion of some that live with parents and siblings because of what we had mentioned earlier, life circumstance and their damage and things like that, something's bad, you still have this option. Just you're going to have to buckle down, save your money, buy that rental property. Yeah, maybe you stay there, but this is a long-term fix for you. But you're eventually going to need to find care for them and do something on your own. You can't live there forever. It is detrimental to your well-being.
Yeah.
And I would even say, I'd even offer it to the audience. If you're willing to make the move down to Texas, the DFW area, I got 2 rooms available. Just bring your stuff down and make a contract. And
There
hey,
you go.
come on in, get some like-minded guys together, do a little setup, maybe a miniature Tate style house. Not as quite as crazy as Tate's, but still.
Get some cam girls.
Yeah, get some
Start a
cameras. Hey,
business.
I got the bed right in the I got the day bed in the studio living room right in front of the fireplace. Perfect for content filming.
What color is your Jeep Wrangler?
Which one?
Hey. Volkswagen owns Bugatti, so therefore my Bugatti is carbon steel gray metallic.
Yeah. I don't want any of you weirdos in the audience moving in with me. So go down to Texas. So let's talk about.
Unless you want to be on the DHS most wanted list.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
I mean, I'm already on that one for multiple reasons, so fuck it.
Yeah. Well, if you're not on a wanted list right now or a watch list, are you even doing it right? Are you...
I mean,
so
me and you, Paul, have veteran. That's one strike against us.
Yep. Can't be a veteran. So let's talk about mindset that guys should cultivate in order to start thinking about how they can make this work as opposed to thinking about how they can't. Let's go around the horn on this. Thor, what do you think? What's something that guys can do to change their mindset about this?
So if you're living with your parents, and maybe let's just use an example. You're living with your parents. It's cost effective. You don't have the best job out there. The best mindset to get something like Paul's putting out in his book, or something like I'm putting out in my book, and that's to develop a dominant masculine presence and use the tools and techniques that Paul has out there, which is really fundamental. It's foundational to organizing your life away from your parents. Now, remember, we're not talking about the exceptions, because there are exceptions, and we recognize that, and that is a good thing to do. You're not going to abandon your parents. You're not going to abandon anybody. You're going to take care of yourself. This is part and parcel of the most important thing you'll ever do. And that is to make yourself your own mental point of origin. It's going to sound selfish to some, because when you live with your parents, particularly if it's a single mother, you have now become the plow horse in place of the man that begat you. And so, it's going to sound selfish, and you've been trained for years. Don't be selfish. Do for others, do for others, do for others. There's times in a man's life he must do for himself. And he must do for the family that he will create and leave the family that he had behind as a legacy. It doesn't mean he can't help them, but he needs to create that future. So all the guys that are out there saying, I can't, start saying, I can. Let's just think of a different way to do it. And let's not think in terms of, well, I don't have any of these things, so I can't do it. Well, in 2 years, what if I did have those things? How do I get those things? Where do I start to get those things? Where do I get those tools? Where would I look? Where should I move around to get a better job? What can I do from here remotely to make a hustle to get out and just start exploring that? Maybe I can't get out on my own. I'll go rent this fancy ass mansion with 6 other guys, because I've seen that done. And those guys stay for years and just replace their roommates because they're living the dream for themselves. So there's a lot of options that you haven't thought of. And it's really, if you're stuck living at home, there is a symbiosis between the parents and the child that isn't that healthy at an adult age, whereas they become more and more interdependent. And that's what messes up their social interactions, and they don't know it. They can't see it. They're too close to it. And I've watched, when a parent passes like that, somebody get extremely devastated, because that had become their purpose in life. It wasn't even taking care of them because they were completely able-bodied. It was just that they lived with them and didn't want to leave. That's a sad place to be. For a parent, you should want your child to eventually leave the nest, create a wonderful life ahead. And then if you need help in the future, they'll be there for you. That's the ultimate. That's my plan. It's a plan for my parents. My mom is approaching, her late 80s. Something goes south. Well, we're there for her. She's only 6 miles away. So you can do something like that.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
about all I got on that.
AJ, what do you think, mindset wise?
Mindset wise, it's you gotta get out of that negativity mindset. Both Paul, I haven't read Paul's book, but I've taken your course. Great course that will help you out with that. I'd say Thor's book is an excellent resource on it. And then there's some other books out there that are good to read, like Atomic Habits and stuff like that. They can help get you in the right mindset. Another thing is an option. I can't condone it at this point just because of current world events and my current feelings with the military. But military is an option for people. It will give you a trade skill if you're smart enough to go into a field or an MOS or an NEC, depending on whether you're in the Marine Corps, Army, or Air Force. That's your MOS. Navy calls it NEC, or they used to call it NEC. That is a high technical field. And that's what I did to get myself into a 6-figure job without having a college degree. So there are options there for you. And this has been a progress of mine over the last 15, 16 years. I left home when I was 17, right before I turned 18. And here I am at 34. And yes, I'm in the second house I've bought, and I can afford it by myself. Another thing I was going to say, where was I going with it? Oh, yeah. I've also, because of my family situation, I'm the only male heir in my family between me and my 2 sisters. I have come to the realization and like acceptance that when my father passes before my mom, I will retire my mother into my house. I have no problem doing that.
Yeah, that's good. Mike, you had some listed for our show, some mindset things. You want to talk about those?
Yeah, it basically, in your head, if you turn 18 and graduate high school, and the day after that, those 2 things happen, your parents die, what do? So think of that in your head. Come up with a solution. Once you have that solution, execute it immediately, even though your parents are fine and alive and well. You need to live your life as if your parents are dead, because one day they will be. So are you living one life now and then you're going to live a second life that's completely non-congruent with who you are once your parents die? That doesn't sound very honest. That also doesn't sound like a way to become successful. No, you need to live your life the moment you turn 18 and graduate high school as if your parents just died. You cannot rely on them. You need to get the heck out. And if you're like in something like a small town where all there is Walmart and a Texaco, and you want to be like a robotics repair engineer, well, guess what? You need to go where there's a giant factory where there's a bunch of robots that you get paid to fix whenever they break. You need to go where the money is. And so you can't be staying in some small podunk town where you can't make money. It doesn't matter if the houses only cost $50,000 for a 4-bedroom house in that town. If you can't even make $50,000 a year in that town because all there is Walmart, then you need to leave. And becoming your own man and being self-sufficient, that's the ultimate gesture of gratitude to your parents. That's how you tell your parents thank you. That's how you show your parents that you love them, by getting out, becoming your own man, so that one day maybe you might have to take care of them. Imagine if you're poor and useless and you can't take care of your parents. That's a nightmare that I don't want to face. No, I want to be in a situation where I have the ability to take care of them should they need it.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to add on that, a lot of these guys that were in the comments were talking about like, oh, F my parents. I didn't ask to be here in this world. Like, they owe me. Like, no, they don't owe you anything. They keep you alive until you turn 18. Then their job's done. Like, it, you know what I mean? Now it's time to fly the nest, little birdie. That is time. It's time.
I was going to say, I see Mark in the chat there. He's got some great inspiration on this subject himself. I don't know if he's willing to come on or not.
Yeah, he's more than welcome.
Yeah, shout out to Mark Daniels, Mark's inspiration. He is a Drakkar. He's one of the original members of the DragonShip. Hopefully he'll come back on with us at some point in time. Also want to shout out Elena Bar's Fitness. Hey guys, Wade Emery. I want to go all the way back to everybody that's joined. Eddie Simmons, Christianity Unplugged. I want to shout out to some of the other guys. Red the Coop did a fantastic presentation on AI in the Dragons membership, and Mike came in trades. Appreciate your participation, man. That man's a tradesman. He does a good job out there thank you for joining. And also, I want to send a special shout out to my newest YouTube channel member, which is Sam Bada. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate you coming on over. All the hard work
Fantastic,
you do
Sam.
for,
Welcome.
yeah,
Holy
thanks.
cow.
Really
Man,
appreciate
Sam
that.
Bada.
The voice of the
Yeah,
rational
absolutely.
male.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, we're gonna have to give him a wrench too. Appreciate his participation. I got a couple super chats. Should I just get to them, Paul, or you want to?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and get them. But if you want to play the horns for these people, that'd be great. So
Okay.
we have is it Moa Soleil? Is that how you pronounce it? Is that 2
Yeah,
pounds?
we'll give him an Odin.
Okay. Thank you guys for the show. Tremendous value.
Thank you.
We have Dark Knight Dev with a $5 heartfelt super chat.
Oh, damn. Double Warhorn. Hey, I got to tell you guys, just a little sidetrack before you read this one. I have a Warhorn. Maybe I'll play it on air one of these days. It's essentially a didgeridoo, but it's kind of molded off of anyway, it definitely makes that sound, but right now I'm not really good at it. So it sounds like a giant fart amplifier, but it's real. It's not digital. And we got it on purpose so that, somebody close to me could exercise their lungs. So it's pretty damn funny.
That's funny.
When we went to Australia, when I rode the Ohio, we loaded like 5 didgeridoos into the engine room of the boat to bring back with us.
Yeah.
I heard if you blow that thing properly, you can hear it from very far away.
Yeah, you can get that resonance, and they're not just exclusive to Australia. They were practically worldwide amongst tribal people. So interesting.
So Dark Knight Div says, I babysit my aunt's house in New York City. I live alone and have a girl over sometimes, but I'm 31. Interest rates are too high when I don't have to pay rent. Yeah.
Well, Dark Knight Dev, you've been a good listener here. I get that. And I get what you're doing there, and I get it. My question to you is, I think you should be saving that money, man. Putting those little coins away, stacking some Satoshis here and there. Be smart about it, because everything in life is temporary. And it's better when you're on your own. You have a little bit more stable ground to hold on to.
You can also leave New York.
Yeah.
Yep.
Precisely.
Get the hell out of New York.
And I've seen Dark Knight Dev in some of the other chat groups that I'm in, men's groups I'm in. I know he's a good guy, so
yeah,
he's got a good head on his shoulders. He'll figure it out.
Yeah.
So one last thing I want to say about mindset. So I talked about my story about how I didn't want to be a loser when I was getting out of high school, and so I decided to join the military. The reason why I had that paradigm was because there was a story, like, man, I want to say it was the early 90s, late 80s. A news story about this disturbing trend of guys that were living with their parents in their 30s that was on TV. And my dad used to watch the news every night when he got home. And that story came on, and I will never forget it, because this young guy in his 30s was like out playing tennis. They show him out playing tennis and stuff. And the reporter asked him, well, why are you still living with your parents? And he goes, well, I like living with my parents because it allows me to have the lifestyle that I enjoy. I couldn't be a part of this tennis club if I lived on my own, and I like doing that, and being able to, mooch off my parents allows me to do that. And my dad's sitting there drinking a beer going, what a fucking loser. Oh my God. He's like, when you're an adult, if you can't afford to play tennis because you have to pay bills, then you don't play effing tennis. Like, what? Oh my God, have some dignity, have some, and I'm just sitting there watching this going, so it's not good to live it. Okay. You're a loser, and that formed my paradigm. So when I was getting ready to come out, I had this idea already that I have to move out, and if you have that mentality that you have to do it, you're going to figure out how to do it. And, I said on our stream last week, Mike, that the thing my dad told me was, hey, if you are going to college or trade school, it doesn't have to be college, but if you're going to some kind of, higher education to better yourself so you can move off into a career and start making money for yourself. If you're doing that, you can stay here rent free while you're doing that. I don't care. But if you are not going to do that, and you're
don't
just
flunk out.
Yeah, and you think that you're going to just sit at my house and play video games and eat chess cheese. Well, you're not. Okay, you're not going to do that. You're going to pay rent. And so I told my kids the same thing. I said, hey, if you're going to school or whatever, you're more than welcome to stay here. My daughter's going to college right now. She's living in the dorms over there. And I kick her a few bucks. I help her out.
Of course.
She's not on her own.
Didn't you get people mad at you for that posting on
Oh,
Instagram?
God. Yeah, they all think that my kids are going to grow up and hate me. I'm like, no, I'm setting them up with a mindset of how can I? It's straight out of Think and Grow Rich, by Napoleon Hill. He talks about burning the ships behind you. If you have no way to go but forward, you're going to figure out a way to make it work. And so I told my kids, I'll help you. You can stay here while you're going to school, but if you're not going to do that, you need to get a job and I'm going to pay you rent, or you're going to pay me rent. And on top of that, I'm going to look around and see what people are charging for rent. And I'm going to charge you more because that's going to incentivize you to get the hell out. If I'm charging you more than what, this room down the road is being charged, you're going to say, you know what, that's a better choice. Let me move down there. And then,
So I got a little bit of a take on the burning boat thing. My ancestors were savages from the north, and they conquered most of the world until Christianity had pacified them. They didn't burn their boats when they landed. You know what they did? They disassembled them and took them with them because they planned on getting to the sea on the other side, or the rivers on the other side, and using it to their advantage. So I'm kind of the frame where disassemble the boat and take it with you.
There you go.
If I recall, you only burn them for a funeral, right?
You can burn them for a funeral, but when you burn boats, you draw a lot of attention to yourself.
There's a reason why Iceland doesn't have any trees right now. It's because the Vikings cut them all down and rebuilt their ships to go to Greenland and Canada.
Yeah, there is a theory around that. They found trees in Greenland, but they can't get trees to grow real well in Iceland.
Yeah, it's starting to get moss and grass off the volcanoes now. It just takes another couple thousand years. But there were trees there, but they cut them down to build new ships.
Holy hell! Look at this super chat.
Oh shit!
Oh wow, $50 super chat. That deserves some kind of.
Thanks,
what do
Mike.
you have for the big ones there?
I got this one, and then an Odin, or let's
see. I like that.
Should get what is it? The shame the 304s.
Oh yeah, we need to give them a shame these horse.
You want to do that?
Yes,
we got that.
Shame this horse.
Yes, that's definitely a shame these.
That's a very entertaining one, and she gets away with it. But I gotta say, I have a special place in my heart for you 304s. It's okay. RP Thor, distributing the red suppository with love.
So Mark says, you are not going to get this info from Xbox Live. Let's give them some support, man. Yes, I like that.
Thank you, man.
Thank you, Mike.
Very, very well appreciated. Thank
29
you. 29
watching, but only 20 likes. Come on, guys. What are you doing? Jeez. Somebody's not doing their job. So let's now we have talked a little bit about this already, Thor, but let's talk about some potential exceptions to this.
Let's do it.
Right. So one of the things that I think you already mentioned it already, right, is your elderly parents move in with you.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's not the same thing. I would argue it's not the same thing at all. They're moving in with you. You're taking care of them. That's perfectly acceptable. It's not you mooching off your parents. It's totally different.
Yeah.
Right. And then I would also make the exception to if you have a parent that's disabled and you're a young person and you're providing the support, that's completely different. It's just like when they become elderly. Mm-hmm. Now, let's set that into categories that we're talking about the basic Pareto curve, which is the 80% of the middle that lives at home. And they're doing it to mutual benefit. A lot of people say it's mutual benefit because mommy is there and son is there and, together they can conquer the world, but it ends up becoming something else. We see this last for years and years and years and a lot of people. And there is a economic reason for that, but not really. When you start to become your own mental point of origin and you get out there, you can make more money. There's a lot of reasons to do it. Now, I'm not discounting the fact that you might be in a situation where mom and dad are saying, hey, stay here, go to college. We're going to fund you, much like we've heard before, or get a job, pay the rent. And you need to go ahead and Zillow the rents for rooms and make them pay that. You know, the free rent thing is a setup for failure. When parents spoil their children, they end up with what I call SAD, which is spoiled adult syndrome, of extremely entitled adult individuals that act like they are stunted in adolescence. They have to be able to stand on their own, and they got to realize they can't get everything, and they can't be scared to go out and try new things and jump into the wild. So I am not going to say that a good exit plan with a group of loving parents is going to be, here's the exit plan. You're going to do this, this, and this. And that might last a few years, 20, 21, maybe a little longer till they graduate. I think that's okay. But then the exit plan you have to pull the pin. You got to pull the pin on the parachute. And that's got to be done up front. I don't think there's really too many exceptions to that. You know, now, if you're a parent and you have a disabled child, oh shit, all bets are off, man.
Yeah.
They're going to be with you forever and you're just going to do it. But that's a really different circumstance.
Yeah. Any, AJ, can you think of any other exceptions?
No, I think Thor nailed him on the head. Like I see a lot of that stuff. Like I said, I'm willing to take the burden on when, say, if my dad passes early, to have my mom move in with me. I'm ready for that. Good example of like the people who are stunted adolescents is my older sister's baby daddy number 2. He's 38 years old, has no job, and is just trying to milk it off the state. Granted, he's also a friggin' meth and heroin addict, but that's a whole other story for another time. But yeah, 30 years old, just riding down the street on a BMX bike, trying to get a handout.
Yeah, that kind of stuff, though, in my opinion, I mean, that's self-inflicted.
Yeah,
you know, you go.
I think also
addicted to meth and stuff like that. That's your fault. You
yeah.
know?
I think a problem also with like millennials, the younger millennials, especially in Gen Z, is they don't know delayed gratification. And like the work that I've done over the last 16 to 18 years to get myself in the position, I actually thank my parents for kind of giving me a shitty hand of cards to start off life with, but it's allowed me to develop into a more adjusted person and be happier with everything that I've worked up to.
Oh, we got another super chat. This is from a Beer Club member.
Yeah.
Ed Mikesell, $10. Awesome pod, boys. Thank you.
You got a sound drop there, don't you? Or do you not?
I don't, not when I'm using your StreamYard. He does like the Elena's shaming these horses.
Okay, all right.
Shame this horse.
Yes, there we go. That's why Ed comes to the show.
All right. Girls, you know how Thor is. RP Thor's got a special spot. I'm not saying it. That's Elena.
Yeah. Let's see what else. Yeah, so we talked about like special needs kids. It's not quite the same thing. Mike, you had a story of a friend who he wasn't he stayed at home, but he did it smartly, and he had a strategy that was I respect that one. You want to tell that story?
Yeah, that was back when I was living up in Oregon. My friend Nick, his strategy was he entered in an agreement with his parents, and he said, "This is the job I got. This is how much it pays me." If I recall, it was paying like $70K. So he got that job when he was like 21. He said, if you let me live here rent free and let me save up the money for the down payment on a house, I will go straight from your house to owning my own house. So jump from 20 to 80 in one step." And his parents agreed to it. And that's so good. At age 26, he bought his house. He didn't do the apartment. He didn't do the roommates. He went bam, straight to owning his own house because his only 2 bills were car insurance and cell phone.
I could see that as an exception, but it also playing against, he's playing against, or he's leveraging time, and that's a good thing, you know.
Yeah,
that's not a bad thing. I think that's pretty smart, actually.
It's not a bad one because he was actually working towards doing that goal. Whereas, like the example that Paul gave earlier was that 30-something-year-old playing tennis, living with his parents.
Yeah. Hey, I have a speculation.
Yeah.
When I was raising my kids, in the late 80s and 90s, at the end of the 90s, there was this phenomenon amongst a little bit younger generation than my generation, maybe 10 years younger, maybe a little less. And they were called hover parents. You guys ever hear the term of that, helicopter parents?
Yeah, helicopter. Yep.
Yeah, that's my
We were
ex-wife.
seeing that. I mean, this was a younger group than ours. They actually had strings tied onto their toddlers in the mall. This was a big popular thing for a while.
Oh yeah, I've
Moms
seen
got
that stuff.
freaked
I remember
out
seeing
about
that.
Leashes.
kidnapped,
Yeah.
which no kids were
Cole.
actually getting kidnapped. They just all watched the same movie, and the kids weren't getting kidnapped, but they all were worried about that. So they all had their little leash on their little kids. And then, of course, we've known several of them throughout the years. Nearly all of them now are divorced, but this is completely my experience. So take it for what it's worth. But just looking on those few examples, those kids did stay at home.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I jokingly said that was my ex-wife. My ex-wife, when the kids were little, was kind of a little bit of a helicopter mom, and the kids would tell her when they're little, they're like, "Mom, I want to live with you forever," and she would say, "Yes, you can. You can live with me forever."
Ooh.
And I would walk into the room and I go, "No, you can't." And she's like, "What? But they're babies. We can't tell them." And I go, "No, we can tell them that. Why can't we tell them that? You know, like there's no reason not to set that mindset in them. Like, no, when you become an adult, you move away, and that's how life is, and that's okay."
And people forget, some people that raise children forget, you're not raising a child, you're raising an adult.
Exactly. So Moa has a question here. He says, what about people that rent a room in their parents' house? I mean, if you can afford to rent a room in your parents' house, why can't you rent a room with some bros?
Yeah.
You know?
Might be cheaper to rent with some bros too.
Yeah. Something to think
Plus,
about.
plus you get to do the interior design however you want.
I would say the exception to that is you're working a plan like we previously listed.
Yeah, like you're going to school and your parents giving you like a real cheap deal on rent and it's just to help you get a leg up. Okay.
I'll throw another exception out there because I remember seeing it.
Yeah.
A kid got into an auto accident and he was speeding and it was his fourth hit, which shouldn't have took a license away, but he was a commercial driver. So they suspended it for a year. That's the commercial part. They took away his ability to make money. But he was a hard worker, willing to do other things. So he took a lesser job. He moved back in for a little while and saved all that money. And when he got that point dropped off, boom, back into his old trade. And so there are a few exceptions like that. You might have to pull together as a family, but that's a family thing, not a.
And it's temporary. It's
exactly. It's right up front. You're making it real honest, and there's no covert contract.
Nope.
And a lot of this living at home is a covert contract, Paul.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When I lost my job at the hospital up in Oregon, back at the beginning of the beer bug, I did have to move in with my parents for 9 months. But as soon as I got a job offer in Las Vegas, guess what I did?
You moved out. I when the divorce happened, right? We the original plan before the divorce was that we were going to move back to Colorado. And my parents have a big property up the street here in Cedar Edge, and my dad has a big barn, and I was like, what if we temporarily moved with my folks, we put all of our stuff in the barn, and then we start looking for houses to buy on the eastern slope and move to Denver. So it's literally just, we're going to be here for maybe, a month or two and then move to a house. That was the plan. So we moved in and did that. And then this was my wife's exit strategy though. So she filed for divorce and we ended up stuck here. But I ended up having to rent her a house to stay so that she could stay here in town and I could still see the kids. And then I was staying with my folks for a couple of months while doing that. And I originally was like, well, I'm just going to stay here until the divorce finalizes and then I'm going to get my own place and move out. But at that time, I also didn't know if we were going to move to Denver or stay here. And I didn't want to, get invested in something and then have to turn around and move again. So originally that was my plan, but it was so fucking annoying being with my family, and my parents were so goddamn negative during that divorce process. Like it hit them harder than it hit me, and I was just having them in my ear, just constantly going, oh, what is that bitch up to? What is she doing? And I'm just like, she's not doing anything. Like, just relax. And so I was like, I got to get the hell out of this house. And so I found a house that I could afford rent with, and I ended up moving out of my parents' house and got my own place. It was a 3-bedroom. And so I was renting my house and my ex-wife's house at the same time for quite a while until the divorce finalized, but I had to get the hell out of my parents' house. But, so it was a temporary thing, but, and so I would say that's an exception, but still you got to want to get the hell out of your parents' house, even when you're doing that,
I was gonna say my divorce was the exact opposite, where I got to keep the house. My ex ended up moving in with 2 of the guys that she was dating while waiting for finalized divorce. But her mother is a professional divorcee, trying to tell her to take the house and all this stuff. And then I just gave her the nuclear option because Washington is a community property state. Granted, it's also no fault divorce state. So I said, yeah, you're entitled to half the value of the house, but you're also entitled to half the freaking debt. So I gave her the nuclear option. She backed off real fast.
Yeah, there you go. That's
so believe it or not, I've been married 31 years with this woman for 33. So it didn't seem like it, but I was married once before. So my divorce story was barely 5 years into a divorce, but I married early. And it was, other than the emotional impact that men feel when they're divorced and have a woman that abandons them. When I say abandon, I literally mean that. Goodbye. I'm not going to sit here during my party phase. See you later. Here's the 2 little kids, 2 and 4. See ya. So it couldn't get any easier, really, on my side. I got to stay in the house, got my car. I did buy her a car, and I gave her $12,000 to buy her out because I knew the money would work really well to have her sign those documents I had drawn up. And that was it. But that was a very different time.
Yeah. I ended up paying like $2,000 in alimony, and that was it. Said and done. She ended up moving. She ended up marrying the last guy she was dating, and they went down to somewhere outside the Bay Area, and then ended up moving back in with her mother in South Carolina.
You paid it one lump sum. That's what I did. I just paid it one lump sum.
I ended up paying around $100,000 over a period of 5 years.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
What I ended up doing was just buying her out of the house. I took on all the debt, and then I paid her the money just so she could go party. It was great.
Yeah, I just paid her $100 every paycheck is what I did, and I made it so that she'd have to meet me at her bank in person, so there was no way I was gonna get screwed. I made it painful for both of us on purpose.
Yeah. So in Colorado, it's a formula state. So the person who makes the least amount of income will get alimony unless they decline it, no matter what.
Really?
So the only way. Yeah, and and that tends to be the woman, because women typically marry guys at a higher socio-economical situation.
How about that?
Is there a time limit on it?
There's this thing called hypergamy. Yes.
Is there a time limit, like here in California?
Yeah, there's a time limit.
5 years, it's almost negligible. But then after a certain amount of years, like I think between 5 and 10, it's the rest of your life.
Yeah, no, in Colorado, it's half the time of the marriage is the formula. So it would have been 7 years, but my lawyer negotiated it down. She was very adamant about wanting alimony because she basically never wanted to work. So she wanted a paycheck. And, but we were able to negotiate it down from 7 years to 5 years. And then he negotiated a step down. So the first 2 years were like the full amount. And then the next 3 years after that was step down, but still ended up being around $100,000 of pain.
And people out there right now wonder and make the assumption that we think we're telling men to leave their marriages because there's lots of comments like that. You red pill guys want to destroy marriages. Listen, that's not what we're there for. In fact, we try to get you to fix what's going on out there because it's a really tough thing to get back up from ground zero when you're in your 40s, 50s, and 60s. That's the highest suicide rate for men once they've been divorced. It's pretty bad. So we try to save that stuff. We're not trying to destroy it, but they don't want to hear that. Our response with the younger guys is don't have a state marriage.
Yeah.
Do a ceremonial marriage.
Yeah. Men who are married don't go finding the red pill because they're happy in their marriage.
Correct.
But Thor, if you do the ceremonial marriage, it's not real. It's not official.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, it's great. You write your own freaking vows. You make it. Actually, it's more important psychologically when you do because you put more effort. Both parties do. And if you both have assets, that's easily a civil contract to negotiate. It's super easy. You can even do that and wrap things up in trusts and LLCs or however else you want to do it. You can protect each other. And then it's really the union of two human beings that want to make something work. What's more important than that? Why would somebody make the argument? Well, if you don't go, you have to burn the boats and commingle all your assets, or you're not really doing it like a marriage. Really? That's just plain fucking stupid.
My favorite
We
is
used to
if
do
you
it
don't get
because they used to give us massive tax benefits, and it was so much worth the extra money that it offset the cost of this stupid, silly, no-fault divorce thing. But that went away late 80s, early 90s, gone.
That $25,000 joint friggin' IRS return deduction is not worth.
It's not worth
$100,000 at least in a divorce.
Yeah, but we
No.
got that back in the late 80s and 90s. Hey, that's pretty big. So it's gone now. But you know what? They also used to let you, I'm old enough, guys. They used to let us deduct credit card interest debt. What do you think that caused? A bunch of foam over people. We only live once. Rack this shit up.
Right.
Megan's got that question right there.
Yeah,
what do you
that's a
say
good
to
question.
young men 18
Oh.
to 20?
One of my favorites right there. It's one of my favorite ladies. Megan
Say,
Silent.
we've kind of gone over this already, where it's like try
you
to
have a
find
plan.
other men to live with as well, or other people to live with, rent a room, or do the exceptions that we talked about with like, hey, go to school. So
Well,
Yeah,
I'd say that they might insist that it's smarter to live at home, but
Is it
I
really?
think that's a self-limiting belief. I
do
really
too.
do, because a lot of people think, oh, I couldn't possibly make it, or I couldn't save as much if I was renting that I could if I was with my parents. It's like, well, how much are they saving now? Are they saving it all? Because if they're
parents
saving it
do
all,
have to go.
maybe they're doing what Mike's friend was doing, right? They're literally saving it all so they could go buy a house. I would venture to say that most guys aren't doing
Yeah.
that. So if they're only saving, 10%, and then they're blowing the rest on Xbox and going out partying and stuff like that, are they, how about
Yeah, what's the
instead of-
end game, basically?
yeah, what are they really doing? And I laid out in my book here, how anybody could be rich, and they could do that by renting a room somewhere,
Absolutely.
because all you have to do is save, they could rent an affordable room somewhere, or an apartment somewhere, and they could still save 10%, because they'll 10 or 15%. They'll never miss it. You know what I mean? So I just think that it's a self-limiting belief for them.
And as someone who has done it, guys, there is nothing more fun than living with your bros for like 2 to 3 years, all of you in an apartment or a house together, and getting into shenanigans and getting drunk at home, not going anywhere.
I agree with you there. I'll give it first come, first serve. Whoever wants to rent a room for me, you get the one available carport spot. There's one carport spot that's taken up by my Volkswagen
I
truck,
love
and then
AJ.
my garage is mine.
AJ.
Other than that, I'm giving you an offer. First come, first serve. You get that carport spot.
But it's a rite of passage. I believe that, and it's not because, oh, I did it, so that's what I think. No, I actually do think it's a good rite of passage for a man to move out of his parents' house and go live with some bros and get into some shenanigans when they're young, and can learn how the world works. Don't get arrested. Don't get deleted, but just have some fun, and then transition to your own place. Guys, it was a blast. Yes, we were playing video games, drinking beer, but we're also paying our bills on time and having a great time with each other. And now those two bros, they're my best bros.
And it kind of gets into like building that tribe.
I will offer some sympathy, not empathy, but sympathy. It is my belief that a lot of the guys that are struggling with this question, that are young like that, your parents haven't done you a service. They didn't talk to you at 14, 15 and lay the groundwork for you so that you had a roadmap to follow. Nope, they let it ride, and they were more comfortable just having their little kid at home. That's a disservice to you. So you're going to have to pull yourself out yourself. That's a bit of a harder task. However, it can be done. You're going to have to reach out for some strong masculine advice on how you might do that, and stick to the plan. And it's not going to be easy. You're going to get depressed. You're going to feel scared, and that's okay.
One thing I want to say too, if you guys didn't know, if you have a bird and it lays an egg, and then the chick is trying to hatch out the egg. If the mom or the dad starts helping that bird out and starts taking that shell away, that chick is going to die. It's going to die because it needs that struggle to be strong enough to survive in the wild. So moms and dads in the, bird moms and dads don't help their chicks hatch out of their own eggs because they know if they do, that chick is not going to have the strength necessary to survive in the wild. They need that struggle. And a lot in a mindset of a lot of parents these days is to not let their kids struggle. It's just a constant safety net. It's, they never let their kids fail. And the kids need that. They need that if they are going to survive in this world and be successful. And it's a lot. Yeah, I was getting a lot of hate from our last video, Mike, because people are like, oh, you're setting your kids up for failure. Opposite. I'm setting my kids up with a success mindset because I'm giving them the power to do it, But in this day and age of participation trophies, like that's just a hard pill to swallow for people,
I was gonna say it's also not uncommon for birds to knock their chicks out of the nest to teach them how to fly too.
That's right. Yep.
Right out.
You got to do it. So speaking of parents helping their kids level up or get a leg up in life, right? One thing too, I'm going to drop it in the chat here and we'll share it on the screen. We talked about this. Yeah, we talked about this in the stream Mike and I did too, but chase.com has a whole article here on ways to help your kids build their credit before moving out, right? There's different ways of doing it. One of them, it depends on the credit card and the credit card company, but you can put your kids' names on your credit card. And if you have good credit, just having your kid's name on there will associate them with your good credit. And they don't even have to make purchases themselves, right? That's one way of doing it. You can get them a loan. They have different types of credit building loans and stuff available for kids. You can get them a credit card and have them go buy, packs of gum and pay off those packs of gum. And, just paying back that credit card every month will build that relationship with the credit card company and help them get a leg up in life with their credit score. So that's one thing.
I've heard of parents doing Roth IRAs for their kids as well.
Yeah, and that's smart. Yeah. That's smart. You can do that. One thing that I've done for my kids is, and I talk about it in the book, right? There's a chapter on everyone can be rich, and I talk about having an emergency fund, a cash emergency fund. I've started my kids' cash emergency fund years ago, and now my daughter works. She has part-time jobs, and she sends me text messages because we do it through Acorns, and you can set up an Acorns early account for your kids. My daughter will get her paycheck and she'll text me and say, "Hey dad, can you take the amount out?" is what she says. And I always take, I take 20% out. So every paycheck I take 20% out and move it into her Acorns account. And then that grows with the stock market. And it's a much higher earning percentage rate than if it was just sitting in a savings account somewhere, And so we do that. And then you can actually pull that money out too. But my kids have, they already started their life out with a cash emergency fund.
Yep.
And if they have that and they're debt free, well, now they can just start socking away for their 6 months retirement and start working the baby steps to wealth. And they've already had a leg up in life,
Yeah, same. That's really good advice because the credit's super important. As a parent, you should always have their bank accounts settled and ready to go and have something set aside for them by the time they're 14, 15, 16 anyway. Yep. And then at least here in California, I provided a vehicle to all of them, sometimes more than one, but because of things that broke down with it, but they always had to pay their own insurance. So they always had to make those payments. In fact, I had one son that didn't want to do that. So he didn't get his license until he was 18. And at that point he moved out. So the deal was the same for everybody. But if they break down, I'd fix them, things like that, because they were still pretty young at home, but they needed a way to get around and get to and from work. And all of them had jobs. Part-time jobs are not that hard to come by when kids are at home. You ever see those kids that are boxing carts at the Albertsons, the Stater Brothers, all the different grocery stores, the Aldi's, all that? I don't know. Do you box your own shit at Aldi's? Well, they're still stockmen, right?
Yeah.
So you've got that option as well with them finances and the credit. The credit's really good because they're going to need that.
Yeah, that's I'm a big Dave Ramsey guy, and he always argues that your FICO score isn't important. That's one of the few things that I disagree with him on. It is important. Like if you're going to go buy a house, you need credit for that. It's smarter if you can buy your cars with cash, but a lot of people don't. So you might need a loan for that, and all that stuff is revolves around your credit score. So it actually is good.
Getting a hotel room requires a credit card.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true. Out here in California, it's pretty much the same, except nowadays nobody that rents has a good credit. So
my advice to people who do buy a car
with loans, it's super important.
With a loan is to pay it off early. Like say you got like a $450 a month note on your car. Pay $550. It'll take off a year to 2 years off your note if you pay the extra $50 to $100 a month. So you can pay it off faster that way.
We got two really good comments here. First one from Ridoku. He is 100% right. And as someone who has lived it, there we go. Here's the thing, guys. The only thing worse than bad credit is a no hit. It's not even zero. It's a person does not exist credit history. That's worse than bad credit.
Yep.
And the second comment here from Megan, this is very interesting. Here we go. Girls. So, in my opinion, it is different because men and women are different. Because the man is expected to be the pioneer, the provider, and the builder. The man, yes, should be moving out ASAP and start generating resources, whatever those resources may be. In our current society, it's money. So for my family, what I will do one day, and I know Paul's doing something different. For my family, my daughter is going to live with me until either she wants to move out because she has a job or until she gets married. I will not kick my daughter out of the house at 18 like I will my son.
I'm kicking my daughter out, but
that's fine.
But the way I look at it though, for both my kids, is that the area we live in, it goes back to you saying, hey, if you can't get a good job at all that's available is Walmart, then you need to move out of your town. There is literally no work out here. All right. And my daughter wants to pursue a career as an attorney. And she's not going to be successful trying to do that out here on the western slope of Colorado. So I want her, when she's done with college, to go find her fortune and move the hell out. And my son, same thing. I want you to go find your fortune and get the hell out of the western slope of Colorado. The people that end up staying here, and they're just working, the manager position at the Maverick gas station. Like that's all they have going on in life. It's sad. It's sad to watch. And it's because they just never wanted to leave the small town. And there are, there's some good jobs around here, but not, they're very few and far between. It's like you can go work at the mine and make a pretty good living. Like, I don't know if my kids want to go work at the coal mine out here.
It sounds
and
like
then the anytime the Democrats are in office, they're always trying to shut that coal mine down. So it's like every 4 years there's layoffs. It's crazy. So get the hell out of this place.
Very similar to like where I grew up. Both my sisters moved in with my parents multiple times. I knew if I moved back in with them, I'd be paying them rent because the only jobs out there in Northeast Vermont was farming, drug dealing, or customer service. One guy I went K through 12 with. The only reason he has his house is unfortunately his grandmother passed away. It's right down the road from my parents. But the best job he could have got that he has with an MBA from VTC, Vermont Technical College, is the manager at Dunkin' Donuts in Newport / Derby Line. So
I'll answer Megan's question. By the way, Mike, hit Megan Silent 8 up on IG. She's got some interesting stuff you'd want to look at. Okay. So I'll answer a question about the daughters. So I'm only experienced with one daughter. So yeah, she left the house at 18. But I will tell you this: by the time she was 15, she was working a part-time job, carried perfect grades, made all of her payments, saved her money, and then she decided she wanted to go to college. Her purpose wasn't necessarily a career, but it was to, I'm just going to say it like it is. It was to expose herself to the highest class, most desirable men who were close to graduating or graduated, to acquire a husband of means, STEM, stuff like that, you know. And she ended up coming out of it with a degree and a teaching job, but she did get married. She did find exactly what she wanted, where she wanted, because she put herself in the area that she wanted to live, somewhere by the ocean, things like that, and expose herself to that upper class. And sure enough, you know, she did that. And now I got 2 beautiful granddaughters for the whole thing, and a really cool son-in-law who he's quite a stud in his own right. So we just kind of followed that path and supported her exactly through that those college years, you know. And she paid most of it. I'll just put it this way. She worked at a golf course, a high-end golf course. It's one where presidents golf, and I don't want to expose where it's at, but she has photographs of herself with ex-presidents. So being exposed like that was a very, very good thing for her throughout her college years. So we supported her the best we could, although I will say this, she paid for almost all of it. That first year we had to do some stuff, but she paid for it all. Pretty amazing. So I'm pretty proud of her.
You guys wanted me to pull this one up?
Yeah. That right there, I think, is a very important one for a lot of young men that I don't think they realize enough of. The craft trades, like, it's awesome, Dylan. I'm fully supporting on this. The craft trades is where it's going to be at in the next 10 years to start building stuff and make some good money. I'm telling you guys, because like I work in the IT industry. I work actually on the infrastructure side, dealing with power and cooling. And like I said, it's a 6-figure job without a degree. One of my coworkers that just covered the other night, he was looking at his pay stub, $148,000 on the year. Doesn't do much more than me. So it's one thing that guys should look into, and I'm not saying don't be a YouTuber or not that stuff, but it's very hard to make a living off of YouTube. You can ask Paul, you can ask Thor. So look into the craft trades.
It's a hustle.
It's a hustle. You have to have very, very strong sales skills. Like, you almost need a sales degree to actually make some money off of YouTube and the digital landscape.
One thing I talk about in my book too, AJ, is you know, stuff like getting into IT and not having to go to college. You can go and get a certification. You can get a CompTIA certification for $200 or $300.
Yeah,
you know, and that looks good on a resume. You still are going to have to know what you're talking about to get the job in the interview, but it having those certifications is going to look nice on a resume, and it's only a couple $100, and anybody can afford that.
Yeah, like I have a CompTIA fundamentals cert just because my last employer was merging CFOps with NOC/DCO. So at my current employer, they see that I have that fundamentals cert. Guess who's doing REH&E when NOC's not there? This guy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I hate it.
I highly recommend CompTIA certs, especially if you're going to be any kind of a technology generalist. It's much easier to keep those current than it is to, you know, get a Microsoft cert, and Microsoft certs expire so often. We could do a whole show on that. That's pretty much all I got, guys. Let's go ahead and wrap up and go around the horn here and give some final thoughts and where people can find you online. We'll start with AJ.
All right. So you guys know where to find me on Arms Details for YouTube, AJ MK6 R20 on IG, AR Matthews 33 on Twitter. That's where I do all my ship posting. I plan on doing a live stream tomorrow, doing a review of the Rag Company and talking about some of the stuff going on in the men's self-help sphere that we've been going through, the whole Destiny divorce, the whole being on watch lists, that kind of stuff. Just my brief feeling about it. Besides that, I will be getting Paul's book here in the next couple days and start reading that. I will be doing a live stream review of that, and then probably do a companion live stream with him in the future once I'm done reading it and doing my review on it, just to talk about it and his LOA program.
Cool. Yeah, guys, check out AJ did a show too on my Law of Attraction course, so check that out if you guys have been thinking about it and you want to know someone's take on it. AJ did a good review of it.
It's worth it.
Mike, you're up.
Thank you for having me on today. I don't have a really big social media presence right now. I don't have products to pitch or anything like that, but my IG is right there. Megan, DMs are open for whatever it is you wanted to show me. No, just enjoying Vegas right now, saving up for a house, and working on leveling up my IT career.
Nice. Ladies, my DMs are always open as well. All right. RP Thor.
Yes, they are always open, aren't they there, Paul? So, guys, I dropped all the importance in the chat. Check out the book, all that sort of stuff. Paul's going to take us out today, so I just want to say skull to the captain of the ship today. Find your car and my VP. Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Thor. Yes, I will take everybody out. Guys, be sure to tune into the podcast Monday. My guest is a guy that everyone said I shouldn't have on my podcast. It's Sergio from Purple Pill Pod. He's my guest. It actually ended up being a pretty productive conversation. Got a productive conversation out of that young kid. So
I don't think I said no. I didn't say no.
No, you didn't. But a few other guys we know said, "Don't do it, Paul. Don't do it." And I was like, "I do what I want. It's my show. I'm gonna have this kid on."
Mental point of origin.
Yeah. Guys, get my book. Get my book. Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 18. It's available in paperback, hardcover, special edition, Kindle, and thanks to RP Thor putting the work in, it's now available on Audible. You can get it. I'll drop a link in the chat here. If you go to books.comeonmanpod.com, that'll take you to my the author's page on Amazon. You can find all the different editions there. And I think that's it. Let's see here. How should we take this out, Thor? I guess maybe play some music. Yeah, let's do that. We'll play some music, and then we'll go ahead and
put us on the blank. Yeah, take our videos out.
All right, we're gonna play some music, and we'll talk to you guys on Monday for my stream.